Well, today we are celebrating the life and legacy of civil rights pioneer Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But decades after his death, the fight for equality still goes on. Last week, the County Board of Supervisors declared racism a public health crisis. They have ordered a review of some of the issues local communities of color face, and they vowed to take action. Joining us to talk about that and what's already being done to address some of the inequalities is Buki Domingos of the Racial Justice Coalition of San Diego. First of all, welcome.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Well, I want to ask you, I know that you support the county's initiative. Can you explain what it is about it that you think is a good idea?
What I think about it that is a great idea is that for far too long, the issue of racism has been something that has not been addressed, and especially in the healthcare system and the treatments and even issues with healthcare insurance that Black and Brown folks are facing.
Now, there have certainly been a lot of attempts to address inequalities, especially over this last year, but over time, as you know, the fight continues. What do you think about this will be different and maybe more successful than certain other attempts?
Well, I think the timing is actually perfect right now amidst the pandemic. We also saw and we continue to see the numbers in communities of color that die from the COVID-19 vaccine. Not the vaccine, I apologize, that die from the COVID-19 infections, higher than those of white folks that get the same virus. And that is the main issue that we're looking at right now.
So, of course, this initiative is talking about getting more data, talking about getting more input. What about some of the other things that have happened and changed over the last year or so? Are there things that you feel like are moving in the right direction in addition to this?
So a few things are moving in the right direction, but we continue to see racism, especially in the healthcare field, and treatments of Black and Brown folks, like I continue to insist and maintain in other platforms, just in general being an issue. And also we have the issue of police brutality that ties into it as well. But specifically speaking to racism as a public health care crisis, we have in our circles a lot of people, one, that absolutely do not trust the healthcare system at this point, just because of the historic treatment of Black and Brown people and people that have actually lost their lives. And we're just hoping that with this new initiative, that this issue is not just a Band-Aid solution, that is actually taken very seriously, and that the communities that are the most impacted are brought to the table to deal with this issue of racism being a healthcare crisis, actually, not just a healthcare issue, a public health issue. It's actually a crisis because amidst the pandemic, we also have to find a way to ensure that there is equity in distribution of treatments, in distribution of healthcare services, insurances, and also testing for Black and Brown people. So we look forward to working with the County Board of Supervisors and all the healthcare agencies to ensure that Black and Brown people are given the healthcare treatment that they deserve. And a great example is when folks are afraid to show up at the hospital just because they are afraid or have experienced mistreatment or maltreatment by healthcare professionals who continue to dismiss Black and Brown people. We also have to have Black and Brown folks in those positions and proper trainings for healthcare staff and officials that are more race-centered and culture-centered to be able to address public health issues. So I'm actually excited for this new initiative, and I hope that this is the beginning of a long, bumpy road in ensuring that there is not just equality for racial minorities in the healthcare system, but also equity as well.
Absolutely. Are there any other areas you feel need attention as well as this?
Well, the County Board of Supervisor Nathan Fletcher he has been very instrumental in pushing several policies like the mental health care response instead of the police showing up. But we also need a lot of attention that is focused, for example, on the district attorney and the San Diego Police Department and Sheriff's Department to really prosecute officers that have murdered unarmed citizens, regardless of what their history was, whether they had felonies or whether they had, misdemeanors. And that's why the Racial Justice Coalition of San Diego is having an action today, actually at 1 p.m. We're all meeting at Balboa Park parking lot 2. And all the information is on our social media pages. We have also reached out to community members. Family members will be attending. The main goal for this new campaign, Prosecutor Resign, is to actually hold our District Attorney Summer Steffen, who is an elected official, to prosecute rogue officers. This campaign is in no shape and form anti-police. We are just demanding that the DA does her job in prosecuting rogue officers and that justice for these families are seen despite the loss of family members.
Buki Domingos, thank you so much for that information and also for your thoughts today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.